From the Universal Tarot. 9. The Hermit. The elderly hermit stands upon a high plateau in a barren landscape. He holds a lantern in his right hand and a walking staff in his left. He has withdrawn from worldly activity and come to this silent place to find the silence within his own soul. The lantern he bears is a small one, just sufficient to light the area around him. He can see only the next few steps on his path, and that's enough for him. This small lantern has two symbolic meanings. First, it represents illumination that comes from focusing attention on just one thing, one moment at a time. It also represents a beacon for other seekers to follow. In the wilderness, that small point of light stands out, signaling that advice can be sought from the hermit if the seeker is willing to put in the effort. The hermit's clothing is almost like camouflage. His body shrouded in earth brown, his stone-gray hood low around his face. His staff and walking sandals indicate he won't be in that place for long. But if one follows the small light, it leads to wisdom. Universal message. Mundane events are distracting you from a deeper sense of purpose. Detach from the worldly as much as you can and seek wisdom. From the Initiatory Tarot of the Golden Dawn. The Hermit. The ninth key. The 20th path. The magical title of this card is The Magus of the Voice of Light, the Prophet of the Gods. The path of the Hermit leads from the Tiphareth to Chesed. It is the mercy of beauty, the magnificence of sovereignty, Jupiter acting through Virgo upon soul. He represents communication between the higher self of the ethical triad and the spiritual self of the supernal triad. The hermit is symbolized by the Carox in the Golden Dawn ritual, who is Anubis, ultimately a lower form of Hermes Thoth, messenger to the gods. The Carox is the light bearer, the shower of the way to the hidden knowledge. The hermit is attributed to Virgo, and thus contains the concept of sexual love in its unmanifested or virginal state. This is reinforced by the fact that Yod, the Hebrew letter given to the hermit, is phallic. Yod is the father fire letter of Tetragrammaton. It is also related to Kether because it is the basic digit that when drawn forms the rest of the Hebrew alphabet. Yod also represents the Logos, the word of power which links the lower self to the higher through vibration. The hand, Yod, of the hermit is that which reaches down to help the initiate. The hermit is the master magician, very old and very wise. He is the supreme will, concealed in robes of darkness and mystery. We may only know him by striving ever towards the summit, reaching for his outstretched hand, attuning ourselves to his vibration. He has the qualities of both fire, Yod, and earth, Virgo. Thus he represents the beginning and end of the elements of the Tetragrammaton. Interpretation in a Tarot reading. Wisdom sought for and obtained from above. Divine inspiration, but active as opposed to that of the lovers. In the mystical titles, this with the Hierophant and the Magician are the three magi. From the Science Tarot. Fermat's Last Theorem. 9. The Hermit. Pierre de Fermat was a 17th century French mathematician with a habit of taking notes in the margins of books he was reading. One such note, found after his death, announced that he had discovered a marvelous mathematical proof which this margin is too narrow to contain. By not writing the solution, he left a tempting and frustrating offer for generations afterwards. Many mathematicians struggled to produce Fermat's proof, consuming lifetimes. The proof was finally achieved in 1995 after centuries of persistent work done without assurance that a solution truly existed. The hermit represents the focus and isolation of Fermat's studies, and of those who worked to solve his mystery. Many discoveries and insights of nature and of ourselves can be developed only in nurturing solitude, separating from distraction and fulfilled through thought and study. From the Tarot of Shadows, Arcana 9, Victim of Temptation. Temptation is the most eminent test that the true children of God pass through. Lucifer was tempted and fell. Christ was tempted and endured, and Adam was tempted and gave in. Temptation is a test or a trial that eventually overtakes each individual. To be tempted does not mean to commit a sin. We cannot forbid the evil thoughts that occupy our mind, but we can reject dwelling on them. We are all exposed to temptations of disbelief. We can be tested by poverty. We can be tempted by Gloria Mundi and by worshiping the devil. We can also be tempted by pride, greed, and the desire for things we really do not need. And we may also give in to carnal sins, humanity's ultimate temptation. And you may say, I am not tempted by this or that, and it is true, but rest assured you are tempted by something else. Card meaning. The ends justify the means. Self-centeredness, obsession, succumbing to temptation, checking or testing, moral quality, useless sacrifice, greed, a bad investment, triumph of selfishness, dissatisfaction, lack of effort, lack of spiritual attunement, a false self. From the Osho Zen Tarot. 9. Aloneness. When there is no significant other in our lives, we can either be lonely or enjoy the freedom that solitude brings. When we find no support among others for our deeply felt truths, we can either feel isolated and bitter, or celebrate the fact that our vision is strong enough even to survive the powerful human need for the approval of family, friends, or colleagues. If you are facing such a situation now, be aware of how you are choosing to view your aloneness and take responsibility for the choice you have made. The humble figure in this card glows with a light that emanates from within. One of Gautam Buddha's most significant contributions to the spiritual life of humankind was to insist to his disciples, be a light unto yourself. Ultimately, each of us must develop within ourselves the capacity to make our way through the darkness without any companions, maps, or guides. When you are alone, you are not alone. You are simply lonely. And there is a tremendous difference between loneliness and aloneness. When you are lonely, you are thinking of the other. You are missing the other. Loneliness is a negative state. You are feeling that it would have been better if the other was there, your friend, your wife, your mother, your beloved, your husband. It would have been good if the other was there, but the other is not. Loneliness is the absence of the other. Aloneness is the presence of oneself. Aloneness is very positive. It is a presence, overflowing presence. You are so full of presence that you can fill the whole universe with your presence, and there is no need for anybody.